All right, thank you, everyone. We're here today because today is Gun Violence Awareness Day. It's also known as Wear Orange Day. And we organize and wear orange events to remember the lives lost to gun violence and to raise awareness about this public health crisis. I'm joined today by our Assembly Member John Mcdonald, by Michelina, who's here on behalf of Assembly Member Pat Fahey, our City Treasurer Darius Shanfar, our Chief City Auditor Dorcia Pleers, Council Members Joyce Love and Jamel Robinson, our Chief of Police Eric Hawkins, Faye Andrews, who heads our Community Development Agency, Eva Bass, who's our Community Outreach Coordinator and Equity Agenda Chair, as well as Jerome Brown from SNUG, Lisa Goode from Urban Grief, and Nolin Smith from the Baby Institute. And also I'm joined by our Commissioner on Human Rights member, Dr. Brenda Robinson. You know, every day more than 100 Americans are killed by guns, and more than 230 are shot and wounded. These survivors are faced with a lifelong process of physical and emotional healing. And so are the people connected to them in their lives. Gun suicides claim the lives of over 23,000 people in the United States every year. More than 14,000 die in gun homicides. And our gun homicide rate is 25 times higher than any other high-income country. Firearms are the leading cause of death for children and teens in the United States. Each year, more than 3,000 children and teens are shot and killed, and another 15,000 are shot and wounded. An average of 9 children and teens shot and killed, and 42 shot and wounded every day. 58% of American adults or someone they care for have experienced gun violence in their lifetimes. And approximately 3 million American children witness gun violence every year. Those are devastating numbers. And while these are national numbers and statistics, sadly, we in the city of Albany know these impacts all too well. So why orange? Orange is the color that Hadiah Pendleton's friends wore in her honor after she was shot and killed in Chicago at the age of 15, just 1 week after performing in President Obama's second inaugural parade. After her death, her family asked the nation to stand up, speak out, and wear orange to raise awareness about gun violence. Gun violence is something that we all have to come together to work on. We have a proliferation of illegal guns in our city. We have a proliferation of illegal guns across the country. We have a proliferation of violence that impacts our communities because of failures that have existed for decades and decades in the systems that are supposed to support our families. And no one person can do this work alone, which is why I am grateful that I have partners like those who are here with me today. And I'd like to start by asking our Assembly Member John Mcdonald to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, not only with my colleagues in elected office, but also many community members, Chief Hawkins, and members of the Albany Police Department. It's no secret the challenges that we are facing, not only here in the city of Albany, but throughout the state of New York, throughout the country. If you listen to many of the national programs, what's been happening here, as dismal and as unfortunate as it is happening throughout this country. Next week, we will be passing a package of bills in the New York State Assembly that will be similar to what was passed by the New York State Senate. Bills that are, from my perspective, what's common sense. There's no reason why somebody should be able to buy bits and pieces of certain elements over the internet delivered to their doorstep so they can make a gun. We need to be doing more research and identification of the causative factors. The mayor shared many critical statistics of what's happening, not only in New York State, but throughout the country. And at the same token, as much as there will probably be some fanfare and some cheering going on about some of those bills, the sad reality is there's not one singular solution to what's happening not only in our communities but throughout the countries. We need to continue to reinforce stability and supports for those individuals struggling with mental health. We need to continue to bring greater support to many of the worthy nonprofit groups that are tending to the needs of our children, to make sure they're being brought up in an environment where they learn to respect each other, to love each other, and learn how to settle their differences. That's how a civilized society operates. That's how we should be operating in this country. And I think if we work collectively with each other, set aside our differences respectfully, we can move in that direction. I'm pleased to be here with my colleagues. I'm pleased to be here with my community. And Mayor, I want to thank you for your leadership today. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you for your leadership. I think that it's important to note that we're going to be talking about a number of the ways that we are working with the community to address violence in the community. But one thing that we have made very clear, if someone, unfortunately, makes the decision to use a gun in the city of Albany, we will do everything in our power to ensure that we bring that person to justice. The Albany Police Department, sadly, has been very busy over these past several weeks. They've done an outstanding job, but it's a job none of them want to have to do, but they will do it in order to bring justice for victims of gun violence in our city. And I want to thank Chief Hawkins for his leadership and ask him to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. So it's been a very difficult year and a half for us in the Albany Police Department and for this Albany community. We've seen a lot of tragedies. We've seen a lot of pain. We've seen a lot of hurt, and it's been very difficult. But just some numbers for us to put some of this into context. Over the last 3.5 years, 273 people have been shot in the city of Albany. 273 people. These were husbands, fathers, mothers, daughters, nieces, nephews, family members. This is a problem that will have to be addressed as a community. You know, we've heard so many times that we need more police. We need more aggressive policing. We need to do a whole lot more with the police, and we've heard this so many times. But everybody here, all of our elected officials, all of the other community stakeholders, community leaders that we have here, and most people in this community get it. We, as a community, with the police as support, have to address this issue. We have to address this issue in a way that does not cause any further harm and any further trauma to our communities. Our communities who, through over 270 people being shot, a community that has been traumatized, a community that has been harmed, families that have been harmed. We have to do this in a way that does not cause any further harm to these individuals in our community. So I'm delighted to have all of the elected officials and the other people that are here to talk about this issue, talk about some solutions for this problem, and talk about how over the next months and years we address this very, very damaging problem that we're having in our community. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. Combating gun violence does take the entire community. And I want to remind our residents of the resources that we have that have been working hard, that have been incredibly successful in past years in the work that they have done. Their work has been impacted by this pandemic, but not their dedication to this work. And so I want to start by talking about the resource that we have to help with disputes that arise among groups, among individuals, that can help to ensure that those disputes, that type of disagreement doesn't result in gun violence. And so, under Jerome Brown's leadership, SNUG is here. SNUG is in our community to help to prevent violence, to help to talk about alternatives to picking up a gun. You know, after a shooting last year, there were some kids that rode up on their bikes because we were out doing a SNUG response. And they asked what was going on, and I went over and talked to them about it. And I said, we're here to say that just because somebody picked up a gun doesn't mean that anybody else should pick up a gun, that the violence has to stop. And this child said to me, well, if somebody shoots at you, you have to shoot them back. SNUG is here as a resource to respond to that, to work with our community and our community members on alternatives to how we resolve our disputes. I'm so grateful for the incredible hard work that they do. I know that this has been an incredibly challenging period of time, response after response after response, but they are here for our community, and I'd like for Jerome Brown to come and say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to say this community is tired. This community is hurting. I have a team of workers who are hurting, who are tired, and while they try day in and day out to combat some of this gun violence and try to mediate situations, they too have families to go home to. They too have other issues that they have to deal with. So we as a community has to come together. There's no one entity that can combat this gun violence, not one. That's why I'm happy that there is a march going on tomorrow that wasn't put forth by SNUG, but by a community of organizations and individuals coming together. Other thing I want to say is I'm glad standing here with this group of people and to say the work that Dr. Brenda Robinson does on human rights. It's your human right to be able to disagree with somebody. This is a human right. Nobody should have to go pick up a gun over a disagreement. Nobody should have to go pick up a gun over a Facebook argument, over whatever it may be. You should know that and be able to respect that that's that other person's right. And we must start that in our homes. We must speak to parents. We must speak to our children. A lot of people say that these children aren't old enough. But how can you say that when we go to these vigils and we see 4 or 5-year-olds here not understanding the complexity of what's going on, but they soaking in that someone passed away at this vigil? We have resources, we have partnerships, and we have the partnership of the city, we have the partnership of SNUG around the state to say if we come together, we can help reduce this. And when we think about Hadiyah Pendleton, who was 16-year-old shot in Chicago as an innocent victim, and see the work that's being done by other organizations to raise awareness on Gun Violence Awareness Day, we have our own Hadiyahs. We have our Destiny Greens. We have our Chinas. So we have to come together, and we have to do something to combat this gun violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerome. Another resource that we have in the city of Albany is someone who I think is really not just tops in our city, in our state, but nationally, doing work on urban grief. It's another resource that we would prefer not to have, but one that is necessary and one that is helping countless families deal with the loss and the grief and the impacts of gun violence in our city. And I'd like to introduce Lisa Goode.
Thank you. Like Jerome said, we are hurting. You know, the teams are hurting, and we are tired. The trauma is real, the grief is real. And so urban grief, ironically, yesterday was the anniversary of 2 homicides of 2 young people in our city from 2001, which was the catalyst for me to even start urban grief. That even after, 18 plus years, people are still grieving the loss of those 2 young people. And here we are again today, still dealing with explosive gun violence in our community. And so part of the work of urban grief has been, one, to erase this notion around a worthy victim. That if a person is harmed by violence, they have been victimized, and their families have been victimized by that harm. The other thing that urban grief tries to do is to really add or raise the humanity of the survivors of shootings and homicides within our community. Their pain, our pain, is often criminalized before it is seen as something worthy of responding to. And so to that end, we work very hard to support SNUG and the work that they do and partner with them, but also we work very hard to gain access to individuals who have been harmed by violence. Many times it's the homicides that kind of get us up and wake us up and say, oh my goodness. But we also have a lot of injured survivors within our city whose lives and the lives of their families have been forever changed by those injuries. Furthermore, we have numerous community residents who experience trauma and a disruption in their daily life because of the shots fired. And so the point that I'm trying to make is that even when someone is not directly hit by a bullet, that there is still harm, that there is still grief, that there is still trauma, and that there is a documented and persistent impact, mental health impact, that is associated with the exposure to ongoing community violence. And that loss is something that urban grief works with people to acknowledge: the loss of safety, the loss of community, the loss of life, the loss of mobility, the loss of income. All of those things are parts of the work that we do. Thanks to the support of Trinity Alliance of the Capital Region, Urban Grief is now a program of the Trinity Alliance of the Capital Region, and because of that, we have OVS funding, and we are a state-identified victim services program. And so to that end, we offer free therapy, we offer assistance with crime victims compensation, we respond, we reach out, we try to engage, and we try to respond to the needs of individuals who have been impacted. The goal is healing. We must heal. And if another shooting never occurred, there has been so much harm caused in our community cumulatively, historically, by gun violence, that if nothing else happened from this day forward, there is enough healing work that needs to be done in our community to rebuild relationships and to address the harm that has been caused. And so we are here, we are available, we are a resource, we partner with SNUG, and we work really tirelessly to make sure that individuals in our community are served in response to the pain and grief that they are dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And if you take one other thing away from what Lisa just said, it's that in order to do this work, people need to understand the work. And so we are working with Trinity Alliance to ensure that we are supporting their efforts supporting their work, helping to fund their work, but it's really important that we recognize that we have to find the right people to do this work. And so the city stands with Urban Grief, with Trinity Alliance, to ensure that we are funding this work. And so that is a commitment that my administration is making. That is a commitment that we now, looking now and into the future, we need to fund it now, and then we need to fund it in a sustainable way because, as Lisa said, this is lifelong work. And so I want to transition a little bit to funding. We hear a lot when we have crime in our city, when we have gun violence in our city, that we don't have enough programs, that we don't have enough services. You've just heard about 2 services that are available here in the city, and we always are looking for partners to do more. We are in a position now to ensure that anyone coming forward who wants to provide services in our community to address the violence have access to funding. Right now, we have requests out for more than $1.5 million in CARES Act funding. It's available in the city right now, $1.5 million. And so we are looking for partners who can address violence and violence prevention programming. But I also want to make a distinction. We also need programming for our youth. And those are 2 separate things, right? We don't call colony youth soccer violence prevention. All right? Our youth are precious. Our youth deserve access to the exact same resources as every other child. And so when we talk about the need for youth programming, let's not have that mixed up with violence prevention. And I think that one of the reasons that we're talking about it, though, here at this press conference is because we need to get people's attention on that. And one person who really understands that, so let me be clear, we have $1.5 million available, and that's available for violence prevention programs. If you've got a program, please come to us. But it's also available to help to support our families as they come out of the pandemic. Our children have been through an incredible social emotional loss. They've lost ties to teachers, they've lost ties to coaches, they've lost ties to things that they are used to in their community. And so we need to support that. We also need to provide more programming. That's why we're looking for your input on building a West Hill Community Center, right? These aren't violence prevention efforts. These are community support efforts that we need to be doing in our community. And one person who understands that and who I've had many conversations with throughout the pandemic, she and I have literally shared tears over how concerned we are for our kids and how important it is going to be for us to be there to support them. Not only has she thought a lot about it, but she does something about it, has created a program that we look forward to funding this summer to address those social emotional losses, and that's the leader of the Baby Institute, Nolin Smith.
Wow, thank you, Mayor. It's like really nice to be up here listening to all the things that we're coming together with each other for, and the mayor has stepped up. She's worked really hard for 8 years, and she's continuing, and she's allowing others to kind of join the city to do some of the things we need to do. My name is Nolin Smith, and as the mayor says, I am the founder and director of the Baby Institute. I just want to pop off a little bit and to say I have 3 children. They grew up in Albany, and I have never had to go to get them from the police station or out of a gun violence situation. I feel like the reason that I never had to do that was because of the support we were able to give them. Children need more than just being nursed and fed and things like that. So at some point, I kept looking around and kind of seeing some of what was going on, and then asking myself, what can we do? What can we do to change? We can't wait for children to get to 14, 15, 16, when they've already lost track, to come back online to say, okay, you need to go to this program, that program, and it becomes overwhelming. Are they going to make it? When are they going to get money? All kinds of things. So we started focusing on, I brought a group of people together to talk about how do we help parents support their children. So the Baby Institute is a program that runs on Saturday mornings at Giffen Elementary School. We spend 9 weeks working with parents on how to build literacy, early literacy. I really believe that education is a game changer. If children are educated early, they tend to have a vision of where they want to go and hope. Unfortunately, what we're seeing with the violence is so many people that have grown up, they're frustrated, they're angry, they just want to get somebody, and they turn on each other. And hopefully, as we continue to do this work, we will see more and more parents and children coming to us, and we'll do a lot more. We've been doing it for 12 years, and so far, so good. I'm going to focus a little bit. I'll tell you about 3 programs, as I said, but I'm going to focus primarily on the summer youth program that we do. So we have the Baby Institute's Saturday morning program, 9 weeks of workshops. Parents have to commit to showing up 9 weeks for 4 hours to learn how to make their children ready for school. If you're not ready, you're going to be left behind. Many of our children are coming in behind, and we want to make sure that parents are doing the work reading to their kids. We give out a free book every week they come. The children at least have 9 books in their libraries, brand new, when they come after they graduate from the program. The other thing we do, we knew that that was a one-off and that wouldn't be able to sustain itself. So we do what we call parent connection, parent engagement. Every other week we bring parents in, we do food and nutrition, we do Zumba, we do all kinds of things just to make sure parents understand that they have to interact and play with their children, talk with their children, and things like that. Our main focus at the summer program is to make sure that we didn't miss anything, that the parents did the best they could, but if kids still can't hold a pencil, can't hold the crayons, don't know their ABCs, we spend 5 weeks of intensive work. Fun, they get to play with Lego, they get to play with puzzles, but it's all about learning, and they go outside. We do that over at the Tony Clements School over at 295 Elk Street. The city has been consistent and been supportive of this work. And I'm really grateful for that, because 2 years ago, we had 90 kids in our summer program. We do 2 sessions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, for the children, pre-K and kindergarten. Those are the heavy focus. And then we also allow the parents to bring siblings up to 12 years old, and they're in a separate part of the building. We do a lot of fun things. And it's just, with COVID, we didn't know what we were going to do, but thanks to the CDBG funds and the support of the city, we were able to get materials. We were able to get funding to buy stuff like masks. We also knew that we needed social distancing, so we ended up buying separate lap desks so the kids could have, they wouldn't be able to touch any themselves. We were able to make sure they have everything kept in one space. We hired a separate person just to do wipe downs, and so we wouldn't have been able to do that as a small organization if we didn't have the support of the city. So I really appreciate what we've been able to accomplish. We're going to go back up this year on July 13th. We will start up again at the Tony Clements Center, and we will watch children that come into our program at summer, no ABCs, don't know their squares, and just through play and fun, they're able to be happy and excited that they're going to school ready. We make sure they understand if it's time to put away Play-Doh, there's a way to do that. You don't run, you don't push your friends. So just a sense to get them ready. And the biggest thing we want to do, we are focused on kids getting ready for college. We want to stay connected to our children and our families to make sure they have the resources for when the time comes that their children can knock on that door, send out that application, and be ready to enter college, to be college ready. I just want to make sure, as I said, I just want to make sure that it's completely free. Everything we do is completely free, and that's because of the support of the City of Albany and the CDBG family that's over there, because we called them up enough to get clarification, so I'm really appreciative of Faye Andrews and her crew. And I just want to say thank you, Mayor, for having me, and thanks for all the work you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. So if Nolin can do it, others can do it as well. That's part of the message that we want to get out there. Nolin had a vision, she had a passion, and then she created a curriculum, and she consulted with education experts and brain development experts and really worked to ensure that she was creating a program that was going to help our families and our children. And she has helped hundreds and hundreds of children and their families. This is work that we all need to come together to do. The city is committed to funding it, and I want to ensure that our residents know that we care, that we want to make these programs available, we want to support the community, and we all need to come together to do it. But we are here with the community to support these efforts and to ensure that as we look forward, our families have the support that they need in order to be successful, that they have the support that they need in order to move forward, and that we are talking about a distant past when this issue of gun violence was a challenge in our communities. And that's going to take work that is going to happen above us, at the federal level, at the state level, but at the community level, we can do this. We can make a difference in people's lives. We can make our community safer if we work together. Thank you.